golf instructor Steve Bishop out at Rio Salado Golf Course in Tempe, Arizona, and today we're going to be taking a look at Rob's golf swing using the 5-step plan. Now, as most of you know, the first step in the 5-step plan is to look at the equipment, and since I am not actually seeing Rob in person, again I have to suggest to Rob that if you have not done so at this time, I would recommend that you go see a club fitting professional to make sure that you are fit properly for those clubs. The 6 variables that I normally discuss about equipment are basically the 6 L's, which are the loft, the lie angle, the length of the club, the loading of the shaft, the lightness of the club, and then of course the looks of the club, the aesthetics of it. So we'll move on to step 2, which is the setup. And taking a look at Rob's setup, we're just going to put a couple of lines down from where his hind end basically sits to where his shoulders sit. And it looks to be that he is just a little bit, not much, but just a little bit on his heels. Rob, you might want to just learn how to lean a little bit more towards those toes. We want to really make sure that weight of yours is on your arches, okay? Not on your toes, not on your heels. It should be right over your arches. The next thing that we want to take a look at is the spine tilt, which I think is relatively good, but it's not very straight. So at setup, what I would definitely recommend to Rob is that he kind of sticks his chest out. I think he's got the butt out part pretty good, but he does need to get his chest to stick out towards the ball a little bit more. And that should straighten up his back just a little bit, because I really don't like to see this curve. It's not horrible, but I would prefer to see no curve there if we can get it to there. Moving to the face-on view, what we can see is that Rob has a relatively strong grip with that left hand. That back of that left hand is really facing much more towards the sky. And ideally, what we should see is that it's a little bit more facing towards the target when we're looking at it. Because we want those hands basically in that 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock position on the golf club. It doesn't look like his right is as strong as his left is. What this generally means is that he's going to have an earlier wrist cock when he takes the club back, and he's probably going to have quite a bit of angle when he reaches the top. As for ball position, I would say his ball position is actually relatively pretty good. It does appear just right off of his left ear, so I really wouldn't mess with that ball position. His hands are leading the club head, which is great, and they're right off of the inner thigh. So this is just absolutely beautiful as far as the setup goes, other than just having a slightly stronger grip with that left hand. As for spine tilt in the face-on view, if we just go this way a little bit, it looks relatively straight up and down, but I think this could be angled just a little bit further back, and I would be a little bit more satisfied with that. Moving on to step 3, which is the finish. If we take a look all the way at the finish of Rob's swing, what we can see from this angle especially is that this left elbow, and I recently did a video on this, that left elbow is getting way behind him, and as you can see, he's pointing his other elbow the other direction. So he's got his elbows have a huge amount of separation as opposed to where they were at the setup. If you take a look at the setup, when I draw a line from elbow to elbow, you see that this line here is much narrower than where they are at the finish. And that's always an indication that there's some form of manipulation in the arms. Usually when I see this left elbow as high and kind of blocking his view like this, it's an indication that the right arm has made a really exaggerated motion through the golf swing. He most likely either a casting motion or flipping motion of some sorts. Another thing to look at in the finish is how his back heel has not come up off the ground at all, and we don't see a proper motion of the lower body. This knee here needs to be much more closer to the target, and even with his left leg. And as you can see, he's basically posted up backwards on that leg instead of what should be much more straight up and down, which would be much more balanced on that front foot. One last thing to point out, and this goes along with where that right elbow is this right shoulder is obviously coming up, instead of staying underneath his chin, it's kind of coming up and knocking him in the chin. And again, that's usually an indication that that right arm has made a distinctive move through the golf swing. Moving back to the down the line view of Rob's finish, again we can see that this elbow is pointing way behind him, and we have a lot of separation between the two elbows, which if I were to guess where his elbow is, I'd say it's about there. It looks like on this swing he kept his right shoulder down a little bit better, and under his chin it's not quite bumping him up in the chin quite as much. And it looks like the foot has come up a little bit more on this golf swing than the one that we saw in the face-on view, but still it's definitely not showing all of his spikes. By this point we should be seeing his foot from heel to from toe to heel facing us directly, so that his foot would be rolled all the way over here as opposed to pointing back this direction. One thing that I'd like to observe for everybody, by putting these two lines here, one is where his left hip is and one is where his right shoulder is, that would place his swing center right about here, which is well out over his toe, and you can tell he's falling towards where the ball is. Usually whenever your weight is falling towards your toes on the finish, that's a clear indication that you have gone well inside to outside, whereas instead we want to be much more balanced on that front foot. Moving on to step 4, which is balance. Here I place a dot between his shoulder blades, about where his spine is, and we're going to check to see where this axis point basically moves throughout the golf swing. A little bit of motion is okay. From the down the line view we really shouldn't see too much of it. We definitely don't want a zigzag pattern. As he takes the club back up to the top, we have a pretty severe dipping motion, so that now his swing axis has lowered and has shifted towards the ball. Now as he reaches impact, he's going to lift up again away from his head. May be still stationary, but you can see that his axis is again shifted back up away from the ball, so that it's about where he was when he was set up at the ball at the beginning. So you see, let's just take it back here frame by frame here. We'll see that here he is at setup. When he swings, he goes down, and then as he swings back up, he lifts up a little bit. See that? And then that's impact. And as he goes through, he's really trying to hold on to that axis, and now he's back over his toes again. Looking in the face-on view for the balance, again we're going to take a spot here and draw along a little dot here about where his swing center is. And again, if we take a look at that, that is just a little bit behind the golf ball, probably right centered over it, just about. Now as he takes the club back, and sorry for the camera shift here folks, but you'll still see that his swing center, when he gets up to the top, has shifted. Now it's about right there, and it's shifted forward in front of the ball. And this is a classic reverse pivot, because now we can see that his spine tilt is going almost the opposite direction of the target. So his hips have gone this way, while his upper body has gone this way, while he's taken the club back. And now he gets to impact, and you can see that he made a big move to try to get back behind the ball. See, now he's back here where he was originally at setup, in order to just get back behind this ball again. And as we move on all the way to the finish, we can see that he's a little bit more upright, but he's still hanging back. He's still trying to hang back to where that ball was when he struck it. And we can also see that his upper body has now shifted back this way during the swing, while his hips have gone this way. This is pretty much a classic hip sliding reverse pivot, where the upper body is meant to stay stationary while the lower body has a lot of action to it that is lateral, backward, and then forward. Moving on to the fifth and final step, which is relaxation. What we're going to find, like I mentioned at the beginning of this lesson where we were talking about that right hand grip being a little strong, we're going to see that there's an early wrist cock that happens in his swing. And as we take it there, you can see clearly he's already trying to establish this angle here between his left arm and that club. Now this is just a bunch of tension that's really created from having that strong grip and having to basically pick up and lift the club up to the top. And as he takes it back, we're going to see that there's an incredible amount of angle, like I mentioned that there would be at the setup with that strong grip. Unfortunately, that much angle, and with his reverse pivot, means that he's going to have to release that angle very fast to get to the ball. Very early in the swing, he's going to have to let go of that angle. So as he swings forward, we're going to see something activate to really let go of that angle, and we can see right there we've already lost a great deal of that angle, and now the club head has almost reached its full distance away from his left shoulder. So he's almost already reached an inline condition before he's even reached the ball. And we'll take it one more step forward, and you can already see that this line here, this distance, is almost completely non-existent between club head to left shoulder. So he's already released all of the angle that he's stored in the backswing, and it's gone. And the club is now going to have a very shallow path to the ball. This early release is almost always a matter of the right forearm making a punching action towards the ball and basically overtaking the left arm. And when we go to the next frame, what we're really going to see is there's the flip. And we already see that the left elbow is starting to move off this direction in order to accommodate that flip, where we've got the angle here and this here, and we got another angle there in his elbow. So there's no more firm left arm that he's got swinging this golf club. Now it's all right trying to punch through and throw that club head at the ball, because that's all he's got left. That's all the power that he's got left. There's nothing accumulated anymore. Now as we go to the finish, we're going to see that left elbow clears out of the way, goes way back behind him, like we mentioned before. As we can see at impact, right? Impact leads to the finish. And there we can see the evidence of his right arm doing so much work in the golf swing, because that right elbow's lifted way up and up into his face. Take one last view in the down the line view, looking at the tension in his arms and in the rest of his body, and it looks to me like he's relatively relaxed. He looks in a good athletic posture, but again, he's got that strong left grip. And the strong left grip is actually a form of tension, because you must rotate your left arm clockwise on the club in order to get a strong grip, which basically means he's already a little tense in that left arm. And that left arm is going to activate the club going back. Now, most everybody's going to take a look at this and go, my God, he is on plane. Gee, that's great. Well, no, not great, because he's got tension in order to do it. So yes, he may be on plane with that great looking takeaway and all that tension in his arm with that strong grip. And when he gets up to the top, he's going to of course lift up off the plane, which is normal. And this is going to place his swing plane right about there. So as we move forward, it looks like he's going under plane. Oops, let me just go back here a little bit. Looks like he's going under plane a little bit, because he's trying to make that inside to out move, right? You take a look at the club head, and it's going to go even slightly under the plane of which he took it. So most people that are probably looking at this are going, wait a minute, he's on plane the whole way. This isn't a terrible looking golf swing, right? Because he looks on plane. Well, unfortunately, look at all the tension that he's having to use in order to cause it. He's got an early wrist set right there. So yes, he's on plane, but now he's got to release that tension somewhere. I mean, look at this. Most people would say, wait a minute, where's the shoulder turn? Well, that's what you get when you have tension in those arms Because how can the shoulders rotate if there's so much tension in those arms? It just goes all the way up your back. You know, you get tension in those forearms, it goes all the way up your back and you can't turn. So he's had to learn how to get the right hip to move back this way, right? And his upper body dips down because that's the only way he can really make those hands go all the way back to make a decent backswing. Otherwise he doesn't go all the way back, he only goes halfway. And then when he comes into impact, looks like he's okay here, but then, oh, look at how little angle. Like at this point here, we should still see the club be angled back here or up here somehow. We definitely don't want it seeing already shallowing out, which we could see in the face-on view. And then when he gets to impact, look at how much his shoulders are closed. Right? He's this way, but his forearms basically are pointing him off this way. So he's really taking this club from inside to out with that strong grip, which is closed. So he's got a major hook going on here. Now as we swing through, look at this. Look at this. Look at this angle that he's got now in his left arm. And it's all because that right arm has tried to go so hard through this shot. And he's flipped at it, right? That's why we got so much angle already between his wrist and his forearm. He's got a lot of flip there. And again, when we get all the way to the finish, we're going to see the tension in that finish there, which is putting his left arm way back here, pointing his elbow back behind him. And even though he's got his right arm folded across his chest, and we can't really see it, but it's a little bit better in this view, but it's still coming up underneath his chin and kind of hitting him in the chin. Hopefully this video has been informative to you. Maybe you've noticed some things about Rob's swing that you might notice about your own swing, and you can work on those when you get at home. Feel free to ask me any questions. I'm happy to answer anything that you may come up with, and who knows, maybe you'll come up with a video response.